I do believe we are live, and I'm going to pull open the broadcast just to make sure and see if we've got anybody on. Everyone, good afternoon. This is a little bit crazy. It's a different time for us. Obviously, this is Scotch for Dummies, but you only see one dummy. See if we've got anybody on. Better stop the stream anyway, right? So anyway, the other three dummies are on vacation, which leaves me, and that's fine because I'm the one that gets the distinct pleasure and honor of having the show today. We have a very special guest, and I'm sure you can tell where that person might be from with what's around me a little bit, but I have him on the other line right now, and I'm going to introduce him in just a second. I want to remind everybody that our review for this week just went out today as opposed to Monday, and it is on this specific bottle, the Wolfburn Aurora. So go check that out. And because of today's special broadcast, I guess, we're not going to have a live show tomorrow night. So don't tune in tomorrow night. We're going to take care of it today, but next week it should be the four of us back on schedule and in prime time at 10 p.m. on Thursday night. So without further ado, let me see if I can't introduce our special guest. Hopefully he's still there. But we have the master distiller from Wolfburn Distillery. And if you guys don't know who Wolfburn is, stay tuned. You're going to find out all about it. Really excited to introduce Shane Fraser. Shane, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Good afternoon, everybody.
Excellent. So Shane is obviously in Scotland. And if you're not familiar where Wolfburn is at, it's about as far north as you can go on the mainland of Scotland, which I guess it's still an island, right?
Yeah, still an island.
So anyway, before we really dive into Wolfburn, before we get into the distillery and the liquid and the juice and what you guys are producing and all the good technical stuff, Shane, tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, where did your career start in the Scotch industry, and how did you get to where you want it?
Yeah, well, I first started work at Royal Lochnagar Distillery when I was 16 years old. And I started as a tour guide, taking visitors around the distillery. So I did that for 6 months. I then was offered a job in the distillery itself as a distillery labourer, it was called at that time. So that was in 1990 when I was 16 years old. And basically I worked my way up through the industry. So I spent about 14 and a half years at Royal Lochnagar. I then went to Oban for 2.5 years. I then was promoted to manager at Glenfarclas Distillery, where I was there for nearly 6 years. I then was offered the opportunity to move up to Wolfburn and start a distillery from scratch and basically produce my own whiskey.
Which is a crazy challenge. We're going to get into that. So 1990, right? 16 years old, 1990. You've really been at this now for what, 28 years then?
You're right.
And those 28 years, have you pretty much done anything and everything there is to do at a distillery, or have you, focused on one particular area in the distillery?
Probably everything I've done. I've done from repairing casks, sweeping the yard, painting, right up to taking VIPs around distilleries with Prince Andrew at Glenfarclas and that. So there's everything from that to go to shows and everything like that. So it's been a very varied career that I've done, and exciting.
So you were 16 and 90. I'm doing the math here on how long you're going to be at this. I mean, what's the average lifespan of a master distiller as far as career? I shouldn't say lifespan, but career span of a master distiller.
Sorry, I hope to get 40 years anyway. That'll make me only 56, so I could do 50 years if I wanted to.
That's a long time. Well, we do have a lot of people online already. And so, what we're going to do, folks, is, and Vin has already spoken up, no nonsense whiskey is moderating for me. So I don't have to watch the chat as closely as I normally would since it's just me. So from time to time, we're going to reach out to Vin, and he's going to kind of try to corral your guys' questions if you have them. And that way he's taking care of that for me. I wanted to reach out to everybody, make sure that our video and audio was good. And it seems like we've got a good thumbs up and we can continue. So we do have a lot of questions, and from our patrons that we gave advance notice to submit questions. And obviously the other 3 dummies left me with their questions too. But Shane has them all in front of him. And so we'll try to get into as many as we can. But instead of it being more of a Q&A, it's kind of more of just a conversation. Shane, do you have anything poured in front of you?
I have nothing poured at the moment, but I'm going to pour a dram of Aurora just now, just to...
Yeah, so I started with a Macallan double cask just to kind of warm up, but I'm extremely excited to do this adventure and actually pour a glass of the Aurora and have Shane walk me through it. It'll be the first time I've ever had an opportunity to taste a Scotch that I actually have a chance to talk to the guy that made it, right? So what should I be smelling and tasting, and what did he intend? So that's going to be super exciting for me. But let's move on to Wolfburn and talk about the distillery and you know how it got to where it is. Now we back up to the 1800s, Shane, and Wolfburn was obviously a distillery. And was it named Wolfburn back then?
Yes, it was named Wolfburn way back in the 1800s. Ran for about 30 odd years. It ran for. It then just basically ceased production and was basically a ruin. And there's hardly anything left of the distillery at all now. There's a small foundation of it, and there's the stream that's called Wolfburn. That's where we get the water from, or the new Wolfburn. So there's not a lot left. We're situated about 300 yards away from the old Wolfburn distillery, so we're not far away from the original plant.
So not far from the original, but here's the question. Is there any remnants of the mash bill from the original? Or, I mean, there's nothing to compare the original, the old juice to what you produce now, because, or is there? I don't know. Is there any remnants in archives or history of what they used to produce?
There's a small customs and excise page that showed a kind of total produce that each year. So we've kind of based the size of the distillery on that. And it showed that the old Wolfburn was one of the biggest producers up in the north of Scotland for that time. But no bottles, no casks, nothing. So we had basically an open book for when we started. Right,
and that was in 2013, right?
Yeah, we started production in 2013.
Right, so you guys laid groundwork to build a new distillery in what, 2010, 11?
No, we started building in August 2012. And
wow,
we were producing our first spirit in January 2013.
So you guys are about as far north as you can go without, taking a ferry. Does that location present like logistical challenges to you guys?
The only kind of logistical challenge it causes us is if the road gets shut. There's only one really road up to Caithness and back again, the A9. So it's one of the longest roads, or if not the longest road in Britain. But it's really one way up and a one way down. So if it gets closed with snow or not, that's the only problem we have, really.
Right. But that's where you get all your ingredients through that road, and that's where all your production, all your stuff to market goes, right?
Everything, yeah.
That's interesting. And 2012, let's just fast forward to 2013, and you guys are actually turning on the lights, open for business, and you get to actually run your first batch, right? So here you are, a new master distiller in a new distillery, and you get to put your first batch down, right? What's that like? How's that feel?
Yeah, it was very scary. I knew what I was doing, but it was like, is this all going to work? And I knew, so we did our first mash probably a week before we did fill any casks, and it had a few wee whoopsies and stuff like that, but we got there, and we eventually settled down to a kind of steady mash bill that we've got now. But it was really exciting. And when we started the distilling following week, once we'd done all the production, the fermentation, it took us a couple of spirit runs, and then we were happy with the spirit. That's how quickly we did it. We were happy with what we had.
Wow.
Because I had a plan of what kind of spirit I wanted from the start, it was pretty simple to how to get to the spirit. So.
Well, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you faced, starting, if you think about the history of distilleries, and a lot of them have gone through, shutting down, mothballed, bought, sold, whatever, even the ones that have been mothballed for a long time, if someone comes around and buys them, normally when they buy it, they also get the leftover juice. They've got something to start with. They can bottle something and start selling it, the next day at least. You guys start from scratch. So we know for 3 years, you got nothing to get any cash flow in, I mean, how are you keeping the lights on?
Yeah, well, that was one of the questions I asked the two owners when I was interviewed for the job. I said, look, are we going to be doing gin or vodka or whatever like that to keep the money coming in? And they said absolutely not. They have enough money to run for 3 to 4 years before any money comes in. So it was quite well off, they must have. So.
It kind of hurts because Sean's always joking about coming over to Scotland and buying one of these mothball distilleries and making it happen. And number one, we couldn't afford to buy the place in ruins, let alone keep it open for 4 years before you can sell anything. That's interesting that was a question you asked before you took the job, though. I mean, I can see why you would have. So no gin, no other spirits have ever run through your stills then?
Absolutely nothing, no.
Huh. Well, so let's talk about, you do that first run and you've done that, you've distilled it out and now you've got some new make and you guys are going to throw it in some barrels and you got to sit on it for 3 years. Okay, great. Let's say 3 years goes by and that first run is technically legally Scotch and you guys are at a point where you're comfortable with bottling it. You like the flavor of it. You think it's okay to be put in a bottle. And you guys are going to go ahead and do that. How much do you bottle? How do you figure out how much you're going to hold back for the future? I mean, do you sit down and have those conversations and say, well, we definitely want to have a 12-year-old as soon as we can? Or do you wait on the whiskey to tell you? To me, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, there's no magic time limit or anything. It's just as is when it's ready. We were very lucky with the first amount we did because they were filled into quarter casks. So they were the ex-Lefroy quarter casks, so they matured rather quicker than, say, a larger cask.
That's that Northland.
Yes. Right.
And so one of the interesting things we were talking about before the show that I think we really enjoyed about that bottle was the peatiness of it was subtle, and it was the way you got that peatiness into it. You didn't peat the malt.
That's correct. No, it was the peated cask that gave us the smokiness.
So Lefroy, you owe the peatiness in that bottle to Lefroy's casks.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And did you use the quarter cask specifically because of their smaller size, so you could get more of that ratio of spirit to wood, or?
Yeah, absolutely. That was the first kind of thoughts we had with the casks, the smaller casks, so that we could have something ready in 3 to 4 years' time.
Excellent. In your position at Wolfburn, I mean, do you have to worry about the big picture, all of it, or are you really just concerned with, the spirit? Or do you have to worry about the casks, where you're getting your casks, buying and selling your casks? I mean, do you have people that are specialized in all of those smaller areas and you're the orchestrator of it all and keeping the big picture? What's your day in the life of Shane Fraser like?
Oh, wow. It's very varied. Well, to put it plainly, we do everything at Wolfburn. The only thing we don't do at Wolfburn is malt the barley. So we buy it in from a centralised maltster, either in Scotland or the north of England. So everything else is manually controlled. There's no computers. So we do everything by hand. So that's mashing, stilling, fermentation, warehousing the cask, filling the casks as well, and bottling as well. It's all done on site and all manual. Oh,
so bottling's done right there too.
Yeah.
Interesting. That was one of the questions that Andrew had, and our viewers that are watching will understand Andrew's questionings because of what he does, and he's the geek, the technical engineer geek when it comes to this stuff. He brews his own beer at home too, so I mean, there's a little interest there. But when it comes to buying the casks, are you involved in those discussions as well then?
Yes, absolutely. So we buy most of our casks through Isla Cooperage in Banshire and Keith. So it's a small cooperage that I've dealt with for a long time. So I trust Ricky at the cooperage, who gets us really good casks. So we also buy direct from Spain as well for some of the sherry casks.
And I can see that. When we're talking about where you get to this and this point, it leads into kind of another question that was posed, and that's, what's the plan for Wolfburn's range? I mean, obviously you guys have a few core range bottles right now that are 3 years old. Well, they're non-age. You don't put the age on them, do you?
No, not yet. No.
Okay, so but we know that they're at least 3, and I would probably assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, I got the guy on the video right here to correct me. It's probably not just 3-year-old Scotch. It's probably anywhere from, it could be 3 to 5-year-old Scotch, right?
Yeah, probably the bottle you've got there is between 3 and 4 years old.
Okay, so where do you see, where does Wolfburn want to get to? I mean, do you foresee 12-year expressions, 15-year expressions, 21 years? What do you think the core of Wolfburn is in the near future, in the distant future?
Yeah, I wish I had a crystal ball to tell me exactly what would be the perfect age for Wolfburn, and only time will tell us that. But I think it'll be between a 10 and a 12 will be our first age kind of statement with whiskey that we'll release. Well, that's my thoughts.
And right now, there's 3 bottles that make up your core range? Is that safe to say?
Yes, you're correct. There's the Northland, the Aurora, and the Morven, which is the lightly peated one. So.
And the Morven is the one that I have questioned here. I don't know if I've seen the Morven. Is that available here in the States?
It is available, but so we changed distributor in America to far into the west side, so into the west coast. So it went into California.
Okay.
So there is Morven in the States, but how far east it comes, I'm not sure.
Right. So, and to talk about that range, the Northland is, I guess we're going to call it a lightly peated, but it's peated in by just the cask. And then the Aurora is more of a sherry influence, no peat, non-peated expression. And the Morven is a traditionally peated expression.
Yes, correct. Lightly peated, yeah.
Okay. So the difference, since I don't have a Morven in front of me, and unfortunately I don't have a Northland either, those two, I'm already interested in pouring those side by side. Okay. I want to know why, they're both lightly peated, and I want to see if I can, discern do a compare and contrast. So without having them, tell me what you think are different between the two.
Okay, the main difference is the casks that went into them. So the Northland was solely quarter casks that were used for Lefroy with non-peated spirit. So that's all that goes into the Northland is quarter casks. Whereas the Morven it's 10 parts per million peated malt. So very lightly peated malt.
Okay.
Through the distillery, the same way as we do the unpeated. We don't change anything. But then we fill it into the quarter casks, so into the peated casks, and into first fill American standard barrels as well.
There's your difference. So it's gonna, you're talking about using first fill bourbon American oak casks, right?
That's correct, yeah.
So we're definitely gonna, in the Morven, there's gonna be that more of a oaky influence, maybe a little bit more vanilla-y. You're gonna get that oak in there, that American oak, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we basically, when the casks are ready to do a batch of Morven, we marry the casks together. So it's a 50-50 split between the quarters and the barrels. We then allow it to just marry together in the vatting tank for a couple of weeks before we bottle it. So that it kind of gets used to each other's kind of chemicals and that's in there, the amounts that are in there, so it's.
Are they all
flavors.
Are they all at 46%?
They're all 46%, yes. And it's unchill filtered as well and natural color.
Right. Which that brings up the topic. So I mean, I didn't mean to go down this road just yet, but we will. So non-chill filtration, natural coloring. You've been around the industry long enough to know that that's kind of a sticking point, right, with some people. How do you personally feel about it?
I personally feel it's better the way it is, the natural way. Personally, I think some of the chill filtering takes out of a wee bit of the body of the whiskey. That's just my opinion.
And let me ask you about the ABV on it then. So these are bottled at 46%. What was the decision that went into that? Why did you choose 46%? Or did the whiskey tell you that? Did you finally get into it and say, it's ready now? I mean, because personally, and a lot of people that watch the channel, I think we all tend to lean a little bit to the higher ABVs. It just seems like they offer a little bit more. So I'm curious to know from your perspective what brought you to that.
Yeah, we tried it at different percentages, but also because you're non-chill filtering, it needs to be above 46%, or it sometimes goes slightly cloudy in the bottle anyway. So we had to keep it strong. But I agree with you. My preference is a higher ABV, between 46 and probably 50 would be ideal for what we need. So, and I think you get a taste of what the body of the whiskey is when it's at that percentage.
It's kind of interesting too. I think in my experience, anyway, in my opinion, it seems like it has a lot to do with the amount of peat too. In some instances, I mean, honestly, it seems like the heavier the peat is in the bottle, the more ABV it can take, and not just punch you in the nose for some reason. I don't know. Maybe that's just the ones that I've had. So it's interesting though. I agree with you on the higher 46 to 50 is definitely good. I reached out to Vin on No Nonsense Whiskey to see if any of the people on the live chat had any questions, and there are a couple. So I'm going to get to give these a few minutes here before we move on to our line of questioning. Travis Souders, one of our subscribers, asked, "Do you already have some of your new make in full size casks today?"
Yes, so the very first casks that we filled, some of them were filled into second fill sherry casks. So some of the casks that are 5-year-old now are into refill sherry casks.
Oh, okay. So we're talking some of the stuff that you distilled back in 13.
Yes, well, absolutely. We've a lot of casks sitting for older ages. So there will be older expressions of Wolfburn eventually.
Yeah, that's kind of the question I was leading to. Back then in 2013, you've got this new make coming out of your stills, and you're putting it in barrels, and gosh, how do you know? How do you know how much you want to put back for the future? It's just one of those eeny, meeny, miny, go type of things.
Yeah, absolutely. We probably got about 2/3 of the first year production still sitting in casks, roughly.
And this is all you store. Your Dunnage house, everything is on location there too.
Yes, everything's stored on site in new Dunnage warehouses. Yes.
Have you guys outgrown your space already? Or are you comfortable?
We had 2 warehouses for the start. We're now got a 3rd warehouse, which we've got warehousing in and our bottling store in there, and we're a way to extend warehouse 1 and warehouse 2 this year, hopefully. So, just to give us some space. But we've got plenty of space where our distillery is to build more if we need to. That's
not a bad problem to have.
No.
All right. So let's see. That question got repeated. Oh, I see. So good. How many casks are you filling a week, if you'll say? And that was from Vin, our moderator.
Yeah, sure. We fill around about 20 American Standard barrels a week.
20 American Standard barrels a week.
Yeah.
So what's your annual production right now? What are you bottling? What's coming out of the
so what's coming out of the stills, we're doing 115,000 litres of alcohol this year.
And what was 2013?
It was 121, I think we did.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you guys aren't, I mean, you're actually intentionally maintaining a pace.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We had, I think our biggest year was 130,000, but we didn't do any more than
that. How many employees does the distillery have? I have absolutely no idea. I'm trying to visualize, the size of this place and how many people it takes to do that amount of capacity. I couldn't even guess.
So for the first 3 years, there was 2 of us doing everything.
Well, I'm looking for a job. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to pour a little bit of this Aurora and let it sit for just a little while we continue to talk. And then hopefully you can walk me through this guy and we can see what I missed the first time. What do you think of our large Glencairn glasses, by the way? Can you see that?
They're very smart. Yeah, I could do with some of them in the distillery. You actually get a good nose in them and that.
Yeah, we kind of fell in love with those. They're becoming a little bit popular. I mean, we still like the traditional ones, but
I've just got a proper tumbler here, so that's.
All right, so let that thing sit off to the side a little bit. We got through some of those questions right now. Talk to me just real quickly. We talked about the core ranges, but there's some other bottlings that you guys have been doing that I really don't know anything about, and not saying that our subscribers don't, but I tried to get as familiar as I could, and I figured that it was just best to get it from you. So there's the Kilver releases.
Yeah, so we're on to the third Kilver release now. So it's the Nordic Ruin series. So there's an alphabet of Nordic runes, so each is an individual lettering. So we're going through that. So I think there's 28 of them or something. So we're doing a whole series of that. And each bottling is a different number of bottles, and it's out of different casks that we've just went through the warehouse and just done different.
We're on 3 right now?
Yeah, we're on 3, yeah.
So we got some catch up to do if we want to have a bottle of the entire collection. We got to go back and get the first 3 before they're gone.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I feel like I'm late to the dance.
Yeah.
Tell me you've got those bottles kicked back somewhere, right?
I've got some in my wardrobe, yeah.
I bet you did. I mean, 28 bottles in one collection is a feat in and of itself. If you guys make it to 28, it makes me think of the Dalmore Constellation series, you know, and you look at the price of that series in its entirety, and that's a lot more than most people's houses, right?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
So 28 bottles. I'll look forward to that. Let's see. I want to ask a couple of the technical, you know, geeky questions from Andrew when it gets into your actual still, you know, the condenser shape and why you built it that way. Now, before you answer that question, did you have any decision making or any input into the construction of the stills and what kind of stills would be put in? Or
yeah, we had a conversation between myself, Richard Forsyth at Forsyth, who built the distillery, and one of the owners. So we had a 3-way conversation of what kind of shapes and sizes and stuff like that for the still. So yeah, I wanted a fairly plain wash still, just no boil or anything, just a fairly long neck, and then I would have liked the line arm to go up the way or be level, but it actually goes down the way into the condensers. But it works because we'll get a wonderful spirit anyway. So
oh, it's a delicious spirit. But why did you want the incline as opposed to level and decline? Or yeah, that's what you wanted. It's a slight decline. Why did you want that? I think I know, but
I wanted a bit more reflux in the still. So we distill very slowly. So I wanted a bit more a lighter character.
Right. And that's what I thought. I just wanted you to say it for the benefit of folks that might not know that are watching. Tell us about your cuts, and this is interesting to me. So this summer, Drew and I were in Scotland, and we had a chance to visit one distillery amongst our tour, and I'd never seen that, you know, how you guys actually do it. I'd never been into a distillery and seen how you guys get this new make and you do these cuts and whatnot, and what goes into that process, and how involved are you in that process?
Well, it was me that thought up the cuts at Wolfburn, so the spirit cut, we run for 10 minutes on 4 shots. So the first runnings out of the spirit still, we run for 10 minutes. And then we do a traditional water test. So we fill the sample glass in the spirit, say half with water, half with spirit, half with 4 shots. And if it's clear at like about 46%, we turn it on to spirit. So it's a traditional way of doing it. You get the clearness, so you turn it on to spirit. If it's cloudy, we don't turn it on to spirit. So it could be 10 minutes, it could be 11 minutes, it could be 12 minutes.
Nothing to do with taste.
No.
And you don't do any other tests on it, like alcohol content, or you're actually figuring out the alcohol content based on the water, that the water's telling you what the content.
Yeah, we then take once we've done the water test and put it onto spirit, we then take an actual alcohol content of it. So it's usually goes on at about 73% alcohol.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, I'd love to see how it's actually done. But that's all you nowadays. You said there were 2 right back. And how many are there today right now?
We have 4. We have 2 trainees. So
you've doubled in size.
Yeah.
What growth patterns. Does all of your distillates start with the same mash bill? And that leads into some other questions about the mash bill itself. So
yes, it does. Everything's the same. So we keep everything the same from basically day one almost. We have 1,100 kilo mash of malt barley. So
And so really everything starts from the same playing field. Everything is except for whether it was malt or peated, whether the malt was peated or not, right?
That's correct. Everything. The only thing it changes is the peated malt. We don't change any of the processes apart from the peated malt. So the fermentation stay the same. The cuts and the stills stay the same. Everything stays the same. I haven't changed anything.
Wow. And then the way you're getting your distinctness, your uniqueness amongst the bottling, then is all maturation, is all cask.
Yeah.
Well, that's a debatable question. A lot of people, that's a big conversational piece when you talk amongst Scotch drinkers. Is how much of the flavor of the Scotch is influenced by the mash bill, by the cuts, by the casking and the maturation, and because you can change any one of those three and you get a completely different product, right?
Absolutely. So that's why the key to consistent new make spirit is to do the same thing day in, day out, get the same spirit, do the same fermentation hours, everything, so that you get a consistency there over the years and years. So if you change one, you'll change everything else, so.
Well, talking about consistency and mash bills in the process, the production process, how do you personally feel about the Scotch industry? Like with the SWA and where the industry is in regards to that, because you got organizations like Diageo that's trying to push the limits a little bit and do some maturations in tequila barrels, or you've got companies like Compass Box that's pushing the boundaries a little bit. How do you feel as a master distiller? The industry is, and is there enough room in there for you to be creative?
I think that there is always room to be creative, and you're always looking to do something different to actually get your name out, get Wolfburn name, whatever, you're always trying, but we try and do it with our spirit, and we try and do different versions of Wolfburn to keep us fresh. We're not going to do anything scientific and wrap casks and cling film or whatever to stop them losing alcohol and stuff like that. We're just going to do it the traditional way. Everything's done naturally at Wolfburn, so we try and push that. Everything's done handcrafted, so everything's just old school, really. That's what we push.
I think there's an appreciation for that in the market, globally, to be honest with you. But it's also, everywhere you look, things are being pushed. You look, there are some places that they're trying to increase the speed at which, whiskey matures. It's a whole industry to study the yeast strain and the grain strain. They're doing genetic engineering to the grain and to the yeast to get more output and production. And it's just, where does that end? And you could be argued it's good, and it could be argued it's bad. So from your perspective, you're more of a traditionalist.
Yes, I'm always looking for good yield, because that makes the distillery very efficient, So if the grain comes in and it's been very well modified for malt distilling, and you get, say, 415 litres a tonne for alcohol, it's really good for us. But we're not always looking for the yield. We always look for the quality. So it's not quantity. We're looking for quality. So we're wanting the same consistent spirit all the time. So we've always used the same yeast as well at Wolfburn. So it's a dry yeast we use. So it gives us a bit of the sweetness and fruitiness that we get in the spirit as well.
Well, I think the consistency, like you said, is obviously the key. Doing the same thing. It doesn't sound exciting, kind of sounds monotonous, but it also allows you to produce a higher quality product, right?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. So before we move on to these other questions, I want to give the chat folks a second or two. So Vin, I'm going to reach out to you and ask you to post another question or three. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for that, I'm going to have Shane walk me through a glass of Wolfburn Aurora. So let me introduce you guys to this again. So this is sherry finished, right, Shane?
That's correct.
You walk us through it. You introduce this bottle to the viewers. So I'm going to be quiet.
This is Aurora. This is the second release from Wolfburn. It's around about 20% sherry cask and 80% bourbon casks. So they were first from sherry casks, direct from Spain. They were sherry hogsheads. So this was married together and then bottled as Aurora.
At 46%. And you said that you pointed out that there's actually different bottlings. The bottle you have in front of you is
yeah, so it's got copper top.
A copper top.
This is the one you've got is probably one of the first releases of Aurora.
Right, and just because you haven't put an age on this, so technically by labeling it's a non-age statement, but you said it's probably anywhere from 3 to 4 year old Scotch, at least 3 up to 4.
Yeah, yes, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so here I am, got this glass in front of me. We just reviewed it. We just posted that review today, and I did write down our scores from the 2 Wolfburns that we reviewed. Consequently, and the Northland we scored a little bit higher than the Aurora, and I think it was honestly because of the peatiness, because of the light peatiness, and as we talked earlier, you know, our journey around the Scotch industry, we kind of all got stuck on that island of Islay for a while, so we're all in love with that peat a little bit, and maybe that had something to do with it. But talk to me about what I'm going to get out of this glass, what you wanted me to get out of this glass.
I wanted you to like get the sherryness, so it's different from the Northland. So you're getting the sweetness, probably getting some, I would say, some dried fruits.
Sure.
Yeah. A wee bit of maltiness, maybe slightly.
It's definitely lighter. I think it smells fresh.
Yeah.
46%. Natural coloring.
So when you taste it, I get spice for a start.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get the sweetness.
But honestly, I think I got more of the maltiness on the palate than I did the nose.
Okay, yeah.
But I definitely could taste the spiciness. Where do you think that spiciness comes from?
I would say that's coming from the sherry casks, personally. You're just getting a bit of that. But I know it's between 3 and 4 years old, so they're still pretty young, but they've matured really well. But you're getting that, just the spice from it. It's actually very pleasant. You know, it's not too hot for a young whiskey, and it lingers in your mouth.
For a young whiskey, it definitely holds its own. I mean, honestly, you can usually tell just by putting a whiskey in your mouth, you know, an assumption and I guess estimation of the age of it, right? This one definitely doesn't just come off as being some 3-year-old. Although when I look at the color and you tell me it was sitting in a sherry cask, I would venture to say that it was a little bit younger, because if it sat in those sherry casks longer, you would expect it to pull over a little bit more darkness, no?
But that's only 20% sherry cask. So
that's true. Okay. See, now that I've tasted one, I've had one taste of it, and I go back into a nose. Now I get a lot more fruitiness. Much more fruity.
The longer it sits, the more kind of fruitiness you get coming out of it. I think it just needs to breathe sometimes, like a good wine.
Well, I was just going to ask you. So, from your perspective, as a master distiller, what do you believe in that? You know, some people say you need to let a Scotch breathe for as many years old as it is, and then they say you need to wash it around in your mouth for as many seconds as years old it is, or whatever. What's your take on that?
I have no take on it, because the only thing I like my whiskey is as long as it's at room temperature. I don't like chilled whiskey, so I like it to sit and warm.
So do you prefer your whiskey neat or with water, or depending?
It depends what whiskey it is. It really depends, but mostly I would have a wee splash of water with it.
Okay. What's and out of curiosity, what's the norm in Scotland? If you polled 100 people in Scotland with how they drink their whiskey, what would you say? Was it with water or neat?
Probably a lot of them would just say neat.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I am. Although I think it does depend on the particular whiskey. And honestly, we talked about this a little bit off camera. I think we're both mood drinkers. It depends on kind of the mood that you're in, right? What you had to eat, what you're doing, and what the whiskey is, and all that good stuff. So, all right, I'm gonna go back for one more nose. I still get a lot more fruitiness now that it's starting to open up, and I've had one on my palate. I think it's absolutely delicious. Now, I know that once we got the Northland home, Sean fell in love with Wolfburn, and he loves the story, loves the Scotch, loves the whiskey itself, and he's always talking about it. He's always got his eye on it. So I think what we're going to eventually have to do, Shane, is we're going to have to come back and pick up a bottle of the entire 3-core range and do a comparison video to kind of try to set apart, if we can pull apart the differences, and see if you accomplished what you were trying to accomplish.
You'll be pleasantly surprised by the Morven. You'll need to get a bottle.
Okay, so I'm going down to Vin. He says he's got some more questions when I'm ready. So let's see. For Dummies, what ABV is the spirit going in the barrel, and after 3 to 4 years, what is it coming out of the barrel at?
So we're watering it down to 63.5% alcohol before it goes into the casks. And then when it's coming out at about 3 years old. It's just coming out at between 59.5 and 60.5, round about that. Some are stronger, but it just depends on the casks.
So kind of dropping maybe 1% a year. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
Huh. So, that kind of makes me think of, you watch these videos of some of the old distilleries that, have casks that are sitting around. They're trying to get to 50 years old or whatever. Balvenie is an example. They have to worry about the ABV in that cask because it's so old that it might fall below the threshold, no?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a thing they have to worry about. It's the older it goes, the weaker it gets. But I think the first 3 to 4 years, you get a bigger loss than you do over a longer period of time. So it kind of settles down.
It does. So it sort of it spikes up and then it just kind of slowly, and it makes sense. Let's see. Tom R asks if they are worried about sulfur aroma taste getting into their spirit. Now, I wonder why Tom asked that, because he knows I'm really sensitive to sulfur, probably. So the sulfur aspect of a spirit, and I hope you understand where we're going with that. I'm really sensitive to that, and like a Macallan, I always taste sulfur. So, do you worry about that in your spirit? And do you know what brings that into a spirit?
Well, what I've tried to do at the distillery is, because we have shell and tube condensers as well at the distillery as well. So we do a slow distillation, but we get a lot of reflux to keep the heavier compounds out of the distillate. So, and when the distillate comes through into the spirit safe, we keep it warmer, so we keep it above 20 degrees. So this keeps out some of the sulfury. So the copper acts as a catalyst. So when it's warmer, the copper kind of reacts with the spirit and removes a lot of the sulfury aspects.
Huh. Now I'm learning something. I'm going to have to go back and watch this and take notes. That one always sticks out to me. And I think that everyone's different about what they're sensitive to when it comes to smelling and tasting. But that the sulfur aspect usually always punches me in the nose. Let me see where my other questions are. That might be, let's see. Check out the comments above from what he likes all the master distiller chat rather than an ambassador. I think people are more entertained by having you on a channel than having an ambassador on a channel. And I'm not going to disagree. We actually have the guy that made the spirit that I'm drinking. How exciting is that? So I'm going to get back into a couple more of these questions. I mean, we've only got about 15 more minutes, and we're extremely, thankful for your time. I realize that you're 5 hours ahead of us, I believe.
Yeah, that's correct.
So we don't want to keep you, and you've got a big dinner coming on, and I realize that. So we'll move on and get these last couple questions done and finish our Aurora. Let's see. We talked about the capacity and what you're already putting out. How large is one bottling batch? And so how many barrels are you putting into one bottle? When you guys go to do a bottling, or does it change?
Well, we have 3 vatting tanks. We have a vatting tank for Northland, a vatting tank for Aurora, and a vatting tank for Morven. So they in round figures, they hold about 10,000 litres of alcohol. 10,000 litres, bulk 10,000 litres. So what we would do a bottling, but our bottling, we usually bottle to order. So if we get an order for, say, USA, say it's 10 pallets, we would do that bottling, but that would come out of the big vatting. So to answer your question, a vatting tank would hold about maybe 60 casks of whatever we're using.
And do you ever do bottling runs where you just empty that thing out?
We'd never empty it because we want to keep a continuity between the vattings. So we want everything to be the same. So we'd probably get down to about a third empty. We would then top it up again. So we've always got continuity.
How much time do you spend personally in your day-to-day job, babysitting those casks, going into the dunnage house and taking a peek at your casks to see where they're at and how they're doing?
We're always in there, we're always either cask filling or just going looking around. If we've got a new vatting to do, or say a single cask for somebody or something like that, we'll go and just search around the warehouses for 2-3 hours if it takes to try and find something different, something special for someone, or if it's just a vatting of Northland or Aurora, we'll go and check all the casks, make sure they're okay, make sure they've matured to the right standard. We'll then select the casks and take them down to the vatting area and put them into the tanks.
Yeah, I'd love to be a fly on your shoulder for a day just to see what you do. And like you said, it's probably different from day to day. But let's see. Do you have additional plans for the still? We kind of talked about your size, and it didn't sound like you guys were in any immediate hurry to increase.
No, with the production plant we've got at the moment, we've got 4 washbacks and 2 stills. We could probably quite easily do about 150,000 litres of alcohol a year without expanding at all.
Right. And you're not, you're only doing 120 now at tops, right around in there. So you've got some room to even increase without even, adding anything to your current.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got plenty of scope to step up if we needed to.
Well, let me ask you more of a personal question outside of Wolfburn. This is just a Shane Fraser, whiskey maker, really, master distiller. Do you have good relationships with the other master distillers? Is it a small, tight-knit community, or is it a small, cutthroat community, or is it do you have other master distillers in your contacts in your cell phone?
The distillery industry in Scotland is quite close-knit, whereas although we're in competition with each other, if we had an issue, say at Wolfburn, we were struggling with our fermentations or something, I would go and reach out to a few people that I know in the distilling industry, and they would come back and say, I'll try and speak to him and he'll help you. It's quite a family-orientated thing, although we're quite competitive as well, so it's like a big family.
And that's what I was alluding to. Obviously it's competitive. That you're in business, and the nature of business is competitive. But at the same token, I can't imagine that you guys are so competitive to where you don't communicate. And I would imagine you guys get together from time to time when it came to industry decisions or industry topics. When the industry is suffering or has a hump or a question or an issue, you guys get together to try to resolve that, and make your voice heard to the SWA. Is that how it works? Or
yeah, there is different bodies and different task groups and stuff like that that all deal with environmental things or distillation and things like that. If there's new things come into the fore or whatever and people are not happy about it, they'll have a discussion about it and then take it to the SWA or whatever to either stop or say okay to it or whatever, So
there's got to be some ribbon going on too, though, right? You guys got to jab each other every once in a while, right?
You have to. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you do. Oh, wow. How do you heat your stills?
The stills are heated by steam coil, so it's indirect steam.
Okay, so indirect steam, and that was exactly what Andrew was asking. We already had talked about your location and your bottling, so I think we've gotten to the vast majority of the questions that were submitted from various places. And I'm going to go back to the questions on the chat here and see what's going on. So Vin, if you're hearing this, give me one last go on it. If anybody's got any final questions. Hey, Aquavite, Roy, our friends in Glasgow, is watching as well. So while we're waiting for Vin to get back to us with some questions, I want to kind of just open the floor up to you to promote, the future. What do you see? Is there something coming down the pike from Wolfburn that you're excited about? Is there, something that you got up your sleeve? Maybe you can't talk about it. I get it. There are some things that you guys are holding back, but you've got the subscribers and people are going to watch the recording this for a long time. So, I want to open the floor up to you and just kind of give you a few seconds to chat about whether it's Scott Fraser or Shane Fraser, or maybe it's Wolfburn, or maybe it's Scotch in general. I don't know.
Yeah, I think going forward, Wolfburn, we may have another standard release in the autumn. Sometimes maybe in the back burner at the moment. We're doing lots of specials for different distributors around Europe and the Far East and that. So we've had a few single casks and a few special bottlings going around the world as well, which are small bottlings, like just over 1,000 bottles and stuff like that. So there's a few different things going on all the time. And it's really to keep the interest going in Wolfburn, because we're a new whiskey. We have to try and keep it fresh and keep it going.
So when you talk about these special bottlings, you're talking about somebody, some company, some location is asking Wolfburn to put a special bottling out for them, and it's a Wolfburn labeling?
Yes, absolutely. So the latest one is the Gessner release for Switzerland. So it was 1,450 bottles. So the distributor from Switzerland came over to the distillery and picked the casks, and we then bottled it at, I think it was 55%.
Wow.
And then it went out of the distillery last week, so it's for sale in Switzerland now. And it's a really smart bottle. So it's just different little releases like that. We did one for Germany last year. It was about the same amount of volume as well. So just the good distributors, or the better buyers, seem to get more specials and stuff like that, so it's encourages them to buy more.
Well, so I did a last call for questions, and obviously they came pouring in, but one of them is kind of along the lines of a question that I wanted to ask anyway. We kind of talked about this off camera before the show started, but Travis asked if you guys have ever sold any casks for blends. And that leads into the conversation you and I had about independent bottlers. So let's kind of talk about blends and IBs for a second.
Yeah, so we've never sold any whiskey to blenders or independent bottlers, and we're not having any intention of doing that either. So we're keeping it all for ourselves. We're being greedy.
Hey, you're the one that's making it. You can be as greedy as you want to. But that answers that, right? So there, let's see. Let's see, we got to that one. Are you thinking about some early single cask expressions or cask strength expressions?
We've done some single casks already to different distributors and countries. So there's been a few out already. So around the world, as far as Japan and stuff. So
wow. So our good friend Aquavite, great channel. You got to check them out, by the way. Roy's a great guy and does some really good videos. But he wants to know if you guys have a visitor center up and running yet.
We don't have a visitor center, but we are open from 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock in winter hours, and 10 o'clock to 4:30 Monday to Friday during the summer hours. And we have a tour at 2 p.m. every day.
A tour at 2 p.m. every day. Well, I wonder if we could get Roy a tour with the master distiller up there at some point in time. We might have to talk offline about that one. I think I know a guy, Roy.
Yeah.
Let's see. That I'm trying to get to the end of these questions here. Let's see. Yeah, everybody wanted to know about the visitor center. Those seem to be pretty hot items nowadays.
We're having any plans for the visitor centre. The people come in to the distillery and have their dram in front of the stills. So I think that's a better visitor centre than anything. So
right. So who needs a visitor centre? Just come into the distillery and watch us make this stuff and have a glass, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. That's my kind of visitor centre. I like that idea. But when were the hours that you were open? Monday through Friday?
Monday to Friday, 10 to 3 in the winter hours, which is from end of October to the end of March. And then from April to the end of October, we're open from 10 till 4, Monday to Friday. But you can also book on our website when it's working. It's down today, but info@wolfburn.com, and book a tour any time of the day if you want.
Yes, I wasn't going to bring up the website being down. You did. So, folks, if you guys have all gone out to wolfburn.com, they had a bit of a technical burp. So I'm not sure if it's up and running just yet, but it was up the other day because I went out there to it. But if it's down temporarily. So we'll just kind of let that go, right?
Forget about that one today.
Well, it was incredible to have you on the show, Shane, and I'm really glad that you gave us an opportunity to get to know Wolfburn a little more personally and find out what it's like to be a master distillery. And I mean, we've never had a chance to have a good conversation with one properly, and you've given us some really good insights. And I'm hoping that someday the 4 Dummies make it over to Scotland like we intend to. I don't know how long that's going to take us to pull off, but when we do, Wolfburn will definitely be a stop on our list. It's going to be. It's going to force us to get all the way up there and see all the other distilleries on the way, I guess.
Absolutely. You just need to come and visit us and visit all the ones on the way up as well, and over to Orkney as well. So,
well, as I mentioned to you off camera, I'm sure there'll be some more questions added into the comments when we finish the show. And there'll be questions that I can't get answered. So I will do my best to try to direct those questions to your attention, whether it's in an email or just send you a link to where the comments are if you're comfortable answering them yourself or whatnot. But anybody out there, if you guys have questions after seeing this video, don't be shy. Put them in the comments. We'll definitely get you some answers. If you haven't tried a Wolfburn, I really, invite you to try one. I think they've got some decent expressions right now as far as variety. Definitely between the Aurora and the Northland that I've had, I'm really excited about trying the Morven. I just got to find it. So that's going to be the challenge. And obviously we need to get out there and get the Kilver releases as well. So Shane, thanks from across the pond. I know we had our times mixed up. We were off by an hour, and you were really flexible and a good sport. I'm personally thankful for you giving me your attention. It's been great to get to know you a little bit. I hope that someday you and I are able to shake hands and actually pour a dram. This was really exciting to me to actually drink a dram and talk to the guy that made it while I drink it. It's just a kind of a surreal experience for me. So I want to say thank you very much. Closing words from Master Distiller.
No, it's been great talking to everybody today. It's been a great experience, a new one for me. And it's amazing how technology is advanced these days that you think you're in the same room as you. So it's great. And please, everybody, come and visit us at Wolfburn or try our whiskey if you can.
Well, and I hope they are. And if you got questions, comments, concerns, throw them in the chat comments, and I'm going to get to them. We answer every one we can. Aside from that, I'm going to go ahead and wish you well, Shane. Say Solancha, and thank you so much for being a guest. I hope we get a chance to talk and meet to you in the future.
Yeah, I hope you come up to Wolfburn, and all the best, Solange.
All right, roger that. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Had a great show. We'll see you guys all next Thursday. Not tomorrow night, next Thursday, 10 p.m.